There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Star Trek New Worlds. My name is Tony. Thank you for joining us here live today, Saturday morning. Woohoo! Ready to go rock and roll. Very excited. If you're catching us on the replay, thank you for taking the time and participating in our game here. You're probably wondering what in the world is Star Trek New Worlds if this is your first time. And Star Trek New Worlds is a turn-based strategy game that we play online with you on YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch. We play this using the Federation and Empire rule set as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau, and the map that you will see in a moment is shown to you through the magic of Vassal. So exciting to talk about today. I have to say, even though some may say that I have the gift of gab, I have to say our GM, Daniel, for this campaign has the quality of the quill when it comes to the things that he can write. He sent me this great email with the highlights of what's going on today in today's map. So instead of me trying to say it off the top of my head, I'm going to read it for you. It's awesome. Okay, here we go. So the headlines today for what we're going to talk about in the turn reveal. Orion's on the move. Orion mercenaries conduct lightning hit-and-run attacks against multiple targets in Hydran space. Several mining operations have been disrupted, one base crippled and another base destroyed. Monstrous hole incursion. A mysterious monster known as the Malaki ravaged Romulan construction operations at the Sector P-50 wormhole. Civilian merchant ships narrowly escaped this kaiju combat as the brave warriors of the Romulan Star Navy sacrificed themselves to hold back the beast. Field of Screams. Far out on the edge of known space, the Romulan exploration team struck an ancient quantum minefield, destroying one of their ships in the exploration fleet. Faux pas. Sometimes swords do not make good plowshares. On the planet of Gaetan, Federation prime teams were in the midst of a delicate negotiation when one of their team members sang the Meow Mix jingle. Meow, 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 meow. This was seen as a grave insult by lead diplomat Cat, who has little humor. Diplomatic relations were immediately severed, and a battle broke out in space over Gaetan, with the USS Coral Sea barely escaping intact. Merchant Marine protest March Madness. Merchant workers demanding better pay and hourly litter box breaks went on strike this month. Commerce has ground to a halt until a settlement between the Ministry of Commerce officials and the strikers can be resolved. Eye of the Liger, Ion Storm, Stegosaurus rages on. Thrill-seeking storm chasers have taxed civilian rescue services. Space meteorologists predict the storm will abate after a few more months. Dino daggers in the dark. An assassin attacked the Gorn head of state. Security forces locked down the entire capital quadrant for several weeks in an attempt to capture the perpetrator, but to no avail. Was this internal strife or the machinations of one of their neighbors? Only time will tell. Juggernaut to the face. Oh, a Juggernaut raiding force has appeared in the southwest of Klingon space, ambushing and destroying a civilian exploration ship. What shall the Klingons do? We shall see. Get Borak, Jojo. Tholian explorers have discovered a new Borak world in deep space. Then discover that they are armed and angry. Memorial services will be held on Tholia in the spring. And lastly, Ice, Ice Baby. While the war rages between the ISC and the Hydrans, a monster has appeared in their northern reaches. An auxiliary force of ships in the area was scrapped together and faced the monster head-on. The monster was identified as an ice monster only after having half the responding fleet were turned to ice cubes. Despite their losses, the monster was put down and its corpse is now on display over Positron. Boom, boom, boom. So very exciting headlines given to us by our great GM, Daniel. Thank you very much for that. As far as what we're going to be discussing today, well, Are we going to talk about crafty diplomacy, or is it just annoying your neighbors? We'll be talking about some changes on the border with the Hydrons and the ISC. Romulans and Klingons as peacekeepers. Again, adding to that story, we'll talk about that. More Juggernauts come to say hi, which is exactly what we were talking about, Juggernaut to the face. And of course, the new campaign has, the sign up for it has started. And so without any further ado, if you haven't already seen it, I would just like to introduce you to the trailer for our new campaign. If you haven't already seen it, here you go. At the dawn of a new age, you lead your civilization to the stars, exploring space, exploiting resources and planets you find, expanding your borders, and eliminating those in your way. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the very quick 30-second trailer for the sign-up for the new Into the Void campaign. You can find the video and, of course, the link to the sign-up page in the playlist for Into the Void that you will find on the YouTube channel. So if you haven't already gone over to our YouTube channel, Star Trek New Worlds, and hit that subscribe button so that you're up to date on the latest and greatest that comes out on this channel, then please feel free to head over there and check that out after the live stream is done. Yeah, so we're signing everybody up. First come, first serve. And of course, those of you who are kind enough, generous enough, and are donating to us on Coffee, that link just down there in the corner, and or on Patreon, you get first dibs to be able to get in. Speaking of which, ladies and gentlemen, a coffee donation has come in from the Juggernauts to the face. Yes, well, those Juggernauts are a dastardly bunch of folks. We'll sort them out in a moment. But for all of those of you who are not Juggernauts or otherwise errant AI, you can head over to Coffee and or Patreon and sign up for any one of the tiers there, and you can participate in our campaign. But of course, you got to go over and sign up on the sign-up sheet just so that we can get your contact information and send you out all the appropriate details and information. So check that out again on the channel. Trailer is out and it's on its own playlist, Into the Void. But speaking of supporters and those who do their best to be able to keep us caffeinated, such as the Juggernaut AI, I want to shout out Matthew Landers, our latest supporter / subscriber on the channel. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us here as a subscriber on Star Trek New Worlds. Very much appreciate you becoming part of the family, so to speak. As speaking of the family, let me jump into the chat and say hello to everybody. William Linton, unfortunately, not be able to join us today. He says, "Damn, I have a meeting right when this starts." Lord Lawless, very clear to point out, always early or late, never on time. But nonetheless, Eugene, my local marketing firm, Eugene, the week's wait is nearly over. Ready for the update? Will the Hydrons recapture the capital? Will the Cardi forces avenge them? Will the Juggies move to kill the monster in Hydron space? Will the Cardi scout ship bump into something? The world awaits the answers. Popcorn is ready. Pop, here we go. Crunchy crunch time. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul is in the house, Daniel as well, and I can see that we're nearly at double digits already for the live stream. So if you are watching us live, please jump into the chat, let us know that you are here, and let me know where you are calling in from. Daniel is saying that Saturday space shenanigans essentially are about to start, and here we go. All right, let's start right into the map. I will go now. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the map. Let's scroll up to what is probably going to be a very strange kind of thing that's happening along the border. Let me explain what has happened. So, if you can see here, there is this JJ2021 2021 zigzag that was the neutral zone that went across this border along here. Well, let me explain what's happened. As you can see that now the line goes down and around and then up and then down and around and away we go. So what's going on here, ladies and gentlemen? The Hydran theocracy is using diplomacy as a weapon, or at least a tool, to be able to buffer their besties, the ISC, from their borders. That's a little too much alliteration, I think. Regardless, what they've done is basically created a situation where there are two, we'll call them peacekeeping zones. One on the right side here, which is the Romulan area, and then one in the middle here, which is the Klingon area. These two areas are basically being ceded to those empires, the Romulan and the Klingons respectively, to be able to control and create a buffer area or zone between the ISC and the Hydrans. Now, the Romulans and the Klingons are on the other side of the map, so you're probably asking how in the world, or in this case, galaxy, Tony, are these folks going to be able to get in there? Well, you can see that this right here is a one-way gravity well. This is specifically an Audi. As I scroll down and across to the Romulan side of the map, you will see that here is the innie for that gravity well. This is Lima with the innie, and although it kind of looks like an I, it's a lowercase l in Hydran space right here. So this gravity well will be the way, or at least the proposed way, that Romulan ships will be able to get to and populate this area. Now, the Klingons don't have any fancy wormholes nearby. So as you can see, in the previous turns, there had been this FTZ, or free transit zone, that had been established. You can see that it has now been extended further north, just shy of the November wormhole, and now in a diagonal direction up into the area of space that is now sort of the Klingon peacekeeping zone, or whatever we want to call it. So that's essentially what's going on. The diplomatic discussions were dastardly, you might say. They were certainly debated hotly, and discourse was exchanged as there was some kind of decision made that brought about a decisive change in the what is now a diagonal border across Hydran and ISC space. I know that was terrible alliteration. Trying to get in there. Anyways, so as we can see here, we've got these two bubbles. I'll take away the ships and the bases so it's a little easier to see. This bubble right here, which is the Klingon bubble, and then this bubble right here, which is the Romulan bubble. So we shall see what that looks like going forward. Will ships from those different factions, the Klingons and the Romulans, be able to get there? Who knows? One thing that's interesting to note, and this goes to the sort of the way that our rules are framed in the game, two parties or two factions, two players can establish a neutral zone between each other. Basically, I'm going to draw a line on the map and say, that side's yours, this side's mine. That is what has occurred between the Klingons and the Hydrans and the Romulans and the Hydrans respectively. That's why, when I again remove the bases and the ships here, you can see that there is a U and then another sort of U-ish shape. So what's happened is the Klingons and the Hydrans and the Romulans and the Hydrans have reached an agreement, and so that border has been drawn. The reason why there is no border on the top is because a similar agreement has not been reached between the Klingons and Romulans respectively and the ISC. Once that agreement has been reached, then a line will be drawn there. But here's the thing. The rules around going to war status, economic war status in this game, one of the criteria is, once a neutral zone has been drawn, once you cross that neutral zone or cross that line in the sand, you assume war status. And so that's what's sort of happening here. What we've got is the line being drawn to try and hold back or try and deal with the ISC border relations. But as you can see, the ISC are heavily populating the Hydran side of even the newly drawn border, so everyone's still at war status. So there's a lot of interesting things to talk about in Hydran and ISC space, but before I get started, let's start today off with EP and fleet cap. All right, let's pop up that fleet cap there in a moment. Once there we go, populated, and away we are. Sometimes Vassal isn't the fastest, but let's start with the from the top to the bottom, at least on the list, who's who in the zoo and the economic factions that are going on here. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Borak, a minor faction. Interesting that they are at 20. We'll go find the Borak in a moment because, of course, as you heard in the headlines, the Tholians found themselves a Borak planet. The Carnivon are at 44. Now, I'm just going to do a quick little check. I do believe that... so you can see here that Carnivon faction is finally part of the Federation. So no longer are the Carnivon economic numbers going to be out of sync. The Carnivon are at a true 44. Federation are at 41. The Gorn, 42. The Hydrons, of course, due to the Golden Rod and the collapse of their capital, are now down to a 22.5 EP. The ISC, by comparison, have catapulted up to 42.5. The Klingon are at a even 47. Now, one thing to note is that even though the number says 47, we only get 46 because this little resource here has been ceded to the Klingons. However, it's over in ISC space, or not ISC space. It's in this peacekeeping space bordering the ISC. I have no supply or anything to it, so it's not part of my economy. So we'll have to see. We'll have to deal with that in a moment. But anywho, Klingons are at 47. The Kzinti are at 10. That's a minor faction, but we'll get to them as well because again, Meow Meow mix that caused some issues. The Lyrans are at 39.5. Of course, they've got their merchant marine protests in action. Not enough kitty litter box breaks. The Remans are at 41.5. Romulans at an even 38. And the Tholians continue to take the top tier at 48.5. Woo! All right. Now, speaking of all things fleet and the navies that are floating around this empty space, what do we got? We got the Carnivons at 74 ship equivalents. They are starting to grow fast. Look at that. 183 to 322 as far as their attack and defense factors. Very interesting. The Federation are at 54 with a 141-227 split. They seem to be growing. The Gorn are at a 40 ship equivalent with 84-169 split. Again, lower tier of the galactic navies of the world, or galactic navies. There we go. The Hydrons are at an even 70, losing a couple ships, understandably, with a 156-269 split. The ISC, king of the hill, well, soon to be not, but the ISC, one of the biggest navies in the game, at 88 ships with 273-391 for the attack and defense factor split. The Klingons, 55 ship equivalents at 145-233. Excuse me. The Remans, 97. They are 3 away from cracking 100, the first faction to do so, with a 282-369 split. Very interesting to note the difference between the ISC and the Remans. The ISC are at 391 defense factors versus 369, 273 attack versus 282. Very close in all respects. Of course, you know, the Remans still have like 9 more ships, but so interesting. The Romulans, 50 ship equivalents at 140-224 split. And the Tholians, 53 ships with a 78-203 split. So very interesting to see that the Gorn and the Tholians close together. The Federation starting to get more into that Klingon sort of tier, we'll call it. The Romulans, the Klingons, the Federation, all in that sort of 140 tier. Very similar number of ships in the 50s of some type. You've got the Lyrans, who, although they're in the 50s, are just under that sort of 140 tier. They're very close, but it's just, I think, the quality of their ships in the sense of they've got a lot of W ships still floating around out there. And then, of course, you've got the big hitters between the Hydrons, the Carnivon, Hydrons, the Carnivon, the Remans, and the ISC. A lot of interesting stuff going on there. Okay. Well, speaking of those exciting factions, why don't we start with the Carnivons and work our way up? Start at the foundation and work our way up towards what's falling down from the sky on high. Okay, let's start with the Carnivons and see what's going on with these guys. Okay, this YDD destroyer seems to be loitering in space, not actually moving too much, although it was supposed to be moving towards the center. I think it kind of is, but it, of course, one turn at a time. It's just taking its sweet time to do so. Fog of War will do that. As we look on the western approaches, we can see the First Reserve, this survey cruiser, and a base being constructed by a tug here to facilitate further exploration and expansion as they go west, up and towards the center, so to speak. So you can see this is happening here. A lot of exploration going on as per discussions with the Klingons and Carnivons, that is. They are exploring the neutral zone along here, and you can see that that's occurring right there. As we move along, we've got Wolf and Coyote, which just because I'm always interested in what's going on with these guys. So we've got the Coyote, got a lot of frigates there, with 5 frigates, destroyer, light cruiser. That's just sitting there on top of this planet. And then we got Coyote. Where are you, Coyote? Maybe that was that Wolf? Oh yeah, so that was Coyote I just looked at, and Wolf has a cruiser, destroyer, 3 destroyers and 3 frigates. So that's like 8 and 4. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a fair number of ships in and around this area doing interesting things. Then, of course, we've got 3 prime teams and an R&D just sitting there on their capital. We've got diplomatic team. What was the... Okay, so still unfriendly over here at New Romulus. The diplomatic team is trying their best to be able to work that around, make it nice and happy. We've got Denfleet probably moving its way up towards the action as the Carnivons are still at war with the... they've got a few cripples there. But the Denfleet's moving up to be able to sort of deal with and engage some of these folks because, of course, they are still at war with the ISC and the Romulans, respectively, based on attacks that have occurred across the border there. We can also see that there is Home Fleet here, still sitting on top of this wormhole, Carnivon Home Fleet, which is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, we got a Dreadnought, Wire Dreadnought, CC, cruiser, bombardment cruiser, 2 CAs, 2 drone bombardment destroyers, 2 destroyers, and 4 frigates, and a prime team. We also have some, what is this? This is the new Hydran capital, which has been passed off, or Carnivons have given this to the Hydrans, and they're building a base there. It looks like the Carnivons are building a base there, which is interesting. They've got their DN, a bombardment cruiser, a tug, obviously building the base, and a frigate. What's interesting, of course, is we've got the Hydran fleet, tug, cruiser, command cruiser, I should say, and 2 frigates. But this bug continues to make its way down here. Very interesting. So what is this bug going to do? Is it going to hit the planet? And if so, what's going to happen? Ooh, I don't know. That looks like it's going to be dicey. We've got a series of, this is now into Hydran space, but let's focus on the Carnivons. So you can see here, one of the things that happened when this planet flipped is that the supply network that the Carnivons had built up into their space, Hydran space, had been disconnected because they had 3 supply. So 3 supply, that's causing an issue there. So now you've got this base here. Maybe they have 4 supply now as I'm looking at this. 1, 2, 3, 4. What else we got? Let's take away the ships for a sec. We've got a base that's going to be completed in 98 spring, which I want to say is going to be very, very soon. So these bases are going to be completed. This base is being constructed here. Once that's completed, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, that'll all connect. And I would imagine the Carnivon are continue to build bases up into the border to be able to sort of deal with the steady incursion of Romulans and ISC as they push down. We can see a collection of various Hydran ships. Of course, one of the biggest problems right now is now that the capital has been taken and the shipyards destroyed, the Hydrans don't have money and or the capacity as far as the slipways to be able to build ships. Excuse me. So that is, we're gonna see a lot of sort of juggling, shall we say, with when it comes to Hydran ships and their repair and then construction. So I don't see the Hydrans building a lot of ships anytime real soon. But as we go up here, what else can we see? We can, of course, see the free trade or free transit zone that's occurred, the change in the border. We've got an interesting collection of ships here that have obviously been attacked in some way, shape, or form, with 2 crippled Carnarvon, 3 crippled Hydran ships. The Fox, Skulk, and Second Fleet. Let's take a look at Fox, Skulk and see what's going on here. So, oh, interesting. So, command cruiser, 2 cruisers, 3 bombardment cruisers, a drone bombardment destroyer, and 3 frigates. So not nothing, and an interesting collection of ships. The Hydran Second Fleet is also up there, which, oh, that's not nothing either. DN, 2 CCs, 4 Vols, and a Triad team. So that's not nothing, and it's certainly plugging the hole when it comes to what's coming down from the ISC and the Remans. So we'll get to that in just a moment. Let's continue with the Hydrans. You can see, of course, that if I take away their ships real quick, you can see that there is no change in the ownership of planets, even though they're in the neutral zone, but the ISC have certainly taken control of the resources that were previously Hydran owned. Let's take a look at the Hydran capital. So again, this Hydran capital is ISC owned. All these planets have been taken, and you can see that they're being annexed as we speak. So what do we got now that we're going to the ISC? Let's pull up the ISC echelons first, as that's where, oh my goodness, look at that enforcement fleet. It can't even be contained within the echelon fleet counter. Okay, what do we got? So cripple DD, but 2 other DDs there. We got third truth and enforcement. Well, there's enforcement with 12 light cruisers. That's nothing to sneeze at. A couple DDs, a couple CAs, and a YDN. Okay, well, that's not nothing. Truth is also there with another 7 YCLs. That's a total of 19 YCLs. Goodness, 5 plus 2, that's another 7 DDs, another CA, 2 CCs, another DN. So 2 DNs, 2 CCs, 3 CAs, 19 CLs, 7 DDs, and a commando, 2 commando cruisers? 2 commando cruisers. Wow, that's good. Law Fleet itself is 2 CLs and 3 DDs within reaction range or reaction distance of the ISC fleet. Just by comparison, the Hydran First Fleet is there. What is that going to look like? Ooh, I don't see Hydran First Fleet being much of an opposition with 2 Vols and a YDD to what's going on with them. Oh my goodness, with those fleets. Now, that being said, supply is the big issue. So as we go up here, we can see that there is a tug probably offering supply and a YDD. We can also see another tug here and a YDD there. In X-Ray 22, there is a tug with a Marshal and Second Fleet. What's in Second Fleet? ISC Second Fleet. Oh, so CL is an escort, a tug, and a prime team. And let's just take away the ships real quick. They're not building any bases, which is strange. Oh, what am I saying? They are building bases. I just taken away the base counter. I apologize. So they're finishing up a base right here on X-Ray 23. Which is good. So that's 3 hexes from their other base. And so they'll be finishing a base there. This is going to make, once they finish the construction of that base, that is going to make holding that territory for the Romulans very difficult. Considering that there is a substantive fleet in the area, the Romulans have nothing there. It'll take time for them to get there. I'm kind of curious to see how this is gonna go forward. Okay, let's scroll up a little bit. We can see that there is some action. Oh, actually, hold on. Let me just quickly look. I might have had the no. I was thinking that I had the base counter toggle off when I was looking at the Hydran capital system. Maybe they started building a base there. I wasn't sure. Okay, so what do we got? Along the border, you can see here with the ISC, interesting to note, there was a YDK over here, and it is no longer there. Now, that might have been from last turn, but I guess the only thing I can think of is that... Oh, no, I guess that's the YDK. That's the YDK. Of course, the visual references are a little off because the border used to go this way, right? So this is the YDK I was thinking of. So the YDK is still there. That's good. And then, of course, we can see there is still the base here, which is this base here, providing logistical reach and supply into this area. And very, very interesting. So what can we see here? There's not much else from the from the ISC perspective. You can see bases up here. We've got some crippled units, which is probably from those pirate attacks that occurred now 2 turns ago. The last gasp of the Hydran theocracy attacking the ISC. But most, if not the majority of their ships are in the south dealing with the Hydrans. So that's predominantly what's going on there. There's also Justice Fleet. Let me just take a quick look at Justice Fleet. Justice, it's just a couple DDs, nothing crazy. So that's good. All right. Now, let's look at this interesting development. So let's take away the ships for a sec. We can see bases, right? And this planet has swapped spots. That used to be a ISC planet, and now it's Riemann. Now, don't get me wrong, the IC have had plenty of gains with regards to their war, but interesting that they've turned over voluntarily the planet because it's unhappy, but it's not annexed. So they've turned over the planet to the Riemanns in some kind of deal, and what's important about that is that the planet provides supply. So if you look at the reach now from a supply perspective, look at the supply that the Riemanns have. Now let's just make sure that the supply, let's set supply to 3 as a default. So that's the current range of supply that the Riemanns have, meaning that the solar fleet, by example, we'll look at them in a second, can 1, 2, 3, 4 attack Fox and second, retreat into Oscar 21, and then retro back, which is interesting. The Riemanns are setting themselves up to be able to continue to pursue and prosecute an assault on the Hydrans and the Carnivon. So very interesting to see how that's evolving. Very interesting. Let's take away that supply overlay. Riemann, there we are. So very interesting to see that. Let's look, we've got Triton and Solar, which are the 2 Riemann fleets in the area. Triton, where are you? Triton? Oh my goodness. And Solaria. Okay, so Solaria and Triton fleet are the 2 fleets in the area. I'll move them so that I'll move them so that they sort of more resemble where they are on the map. Okay. So we can see Solar is the smaller one here. Solaria is a total of 7 destroyers, 4 frigates, and a cruiser. And they're within, again, reaching distance of Fox, Skulk, and second. And then they're also backed up by Triton here, which has another 6 destroyers and 2 frigates. So that's, hold on, let me just add that together. So 13, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. That's 21 ships total, all of which can be supplied by the Riemann supply grid, meaning that the ISC are no longer spending money to be able to provide supply to those ships. Those ships can reach out and attack those folks. Now, if they were to work in... Oh, there's also Columbia Fleet. Heaven forbid me forget Columbia Fleet. Where are you? Columbia Fleet. Now, a couple cripples here, but then they've still got another 5 frigates. 6 frigates, excuse me, a destroyer, and another cruiser. So they've got 3 cruisers in the area, double digits of destroyers, double digits worth of frigates. This is going to be very interesting. This is the classic, at least what I'm seeing right now, this is the classic Riemann strategy. Completely flood the area and dominate your opponent. So very, very interesting to see how they're going to deal with the Carnivon. If I'm the Carnivon, and I don't want to lose any ground because let's walk this out. Let's walk this out. If the Remans, the ISC have certainly done what they're going to do in the sense that they've taken the capital, they've got where they got, they're going to be in a good position. Now they could basically consolidate their where they're at and work to be able to build bases, fortify, and they'll be in a good spot. The Hydrants are not in a position to really stop them. The Remans, on the other hand, their gunpowder is dry. They've got lots of ships ready to go, as clearly we just saw, and they are in striking distance of both Hydran and Carnarvon fleets. So depending on the diplomacy piece, whether they're going to go to peace or maintain war status will depend, but you've got the Remans that are continuing to prosecute, or at least it looks like they're going to continue to prosecute the war. They're looking like they're going to continue to move down and sort of deal with that Armageddon area and move south. The only ships in the way are the Carnarvon and the Hydrants, and will they have enough? As it stands right now, it doesn't look like they do. If I'm the Carnarvon and I want to stop that, then I'm going to have to really pump a lot of ships into that area. Now, we know that the Carnarvon have a lot of ships, or at least they have a fair number. They've got 70 ships. So where are all those ships situated? We know there's a couple sitting on the border with the Klingons, but the majority of them are kind of like hovering on the northern border with the Hydrants. So what's going on? And how long is it going to take to be able to move those ships into theater or like into the area of operation against the Remans? The longer that it takes the Carnarvon, assuming the Carnarvon want to do this, the longer it takes the Carnarvon to get into position, the more the Remans are going to take. Because very clearly, the Hydrants don't have enough ships and or financial resources to be able to stop them. So what are they going to do? I don't know. What do you think they're going to do? How do you think they should move forward? Interesting to think about. So let me take a second here as I was highlighting that before I jump back into the Reman side. And let me just check in on the chat as I see a whole bunch of business here. Okay. So we've got Chuck in the house, my future subjects, he says. Kevin, greetings from SoCal. Daniel, Hydrants did recapture their capital briefly. Then the ISC returned in force and recaptured it. Excellent. Paul Williams is laughing at that. Paul, looks like the war with the Romulans and the Klingons then. Paul, what happened to the big talking Romulans not entering wormholes? Dun, dun, dun. Interesting to see. Dell, good luck. Dell is the Remans, so yeah. Not yours for long, laugh out loud. No, it's ISC space, he smiles. The resource is the wrong color, Dell says. Eugene, so Dell, what resource are you talking about? Are you talking what? Yeah, what are you talking about there? Eugene, Hydran resources in supply? Question mark. Looks like the link base was popped and the resources are now separated from the new capital. Ooh, let me just look at that. Going back to the map real quick. Let's pull the ships off and take a quick look. Ha ha ha. So we know that the Hydrants have 4 supply. What are the closest points of supply or supply nodes to what's in the east here? So we can see that 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a 4 connection between this supply node and this supply node. Certainly 3 between this planet and this one. But there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 distance between this supply node and this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So effectively what this means is that the whatever, this planet, this resource, this planet, and this resource are outside of the Hydran supply network. They cannot connect. In addition to that, these 2 planets, or these 2 bases, are obviously in range of this planet, but this base is now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 outside the range of this base, meaning that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That means that this resource, this planet, this resource, and this resource, which is a total of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 of those 22.5 resources are inaccessible to the Hydrants. They can't spend it. So not only have the ISC taken the capital and completely crippled the economy. They've now broken the supply chain for the Hydrants to be able to receive all those resources, and they can't use the money. In addition, let's bring back the ships for a second. All the ships that are on this side of the border now need to be supplied by the isolated supply grid. And I'd have to look up the rule exactly, but isolated supply grids, basically one EP can supply, I think, don't quote me on this, I think it's 5 ships. It may be more, it may be less. I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up. But isolated supply grids can only supply a certain number of ships. So we'll have to just do a quick count and see what's within range here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is where the base is, right? Hold on. Let me take away the ships real quick. Right. So anything north of, sort of northeast of here. So there's 3 ships there. 2 ships there. That's 5, 6. Whatever's in iridium, tungsten, and xenon, which I'm assuming is like 2 ships each. That's another 6. And then whatever's in 5th Fleet, which was... Where are you, Hydran? Come on now. Hydran, 5th Fleet, and then 1st Fleet... because 1st Fleet's there. So there's only 1 ship there. And sorry, 2nd Fleet was the other one. 2nd is, so it's another 5, 6, 7, 8. So 7 and 8. So there's approximately 15 ships. Let's just take a look at those noble fleets. Tungsten, well, xenon is 2. Arg is not in there. So 2, yeah, I'm going to say 2, 2, 2. So 6 plus 7. Okay. So yeah, we're dealing with a supply issue. And so I'll leave it to the Hydran player and the GM to sort that out. But there is likely going to be a limitation on how many ships can be supplied there. And in addition, any fleets that are being supplied by the Hydran Empire for the Carnivons, that might be an issue as well. We'd have to look that up in the rules, but it would seem logical to me, and granted, this is fun because we've never done this before. This never happened in the game before, so I have to look. I don't believe, or it would seem reasonable that if there's a supply network set up to supply those ships and it's being isolated from the main supply grid, how is that going to affect an empire's ability to supply those ships? There could be a situation whereby the Carnivon and the Hydran ships in that isolated bit of space don't have enough resources to support all the ships that are there, and then they're going to be in trouble. Very interesting. Let me just take a quick sip as we ponder that. All right. So yes, Daniel's confirming for me. In a partial supply grid, 1 EP supports up to 5 units. Now he says ships or bases. Ships or bases do not require supply, and that's because bases basically self-supply. They don't need supply for what they do, but the ships do. So it doesn't include bases. Bases, planetary ground bases, things like that. They never need supply. They don't draw from supply in partial supply grids, but they are supply nodes, so they can obviously provide extensions for it. So, Dell's saying the resource wrongly marked as Klingon. So let me tell you why that resource is marked as Klingon. Because at the time when it was turned over, it was Hydran. And as part of the deal that we struck between the Hydrans and the Klingons, they ceded that territory to me. Therefore, as the Klingons, therefore it became a Klingon resource. So that's why it is a Klingon resource. But I'm sure Dell and Paul, the Klingons, I can't speak the Romulans, but the Klingons and the ISC and the Remans will obviously need to have a chit chat and see what's going on. Very, very interesting. Okay, let's go back and talk about what's going on with the Remans. Ladies and gentlemen, at the top of the map, what do we got going on here? Well, we can see that we've got, Atlantis. Atlanta fleet. It's hot in Atlanta. Atlantia fleet, which has a couple destroyers, frigates, and a cruiser. They're just kind of chilling. We've got Cerberus fleet, which is, if memory serves, Cerberus fleet was like the big baddie, wasn't it? With the Dreadnought. There it is. All right. Whoop. There you go. So there's that Dreadnought that we were talking about. Then we've got a KD-4C, which is a command ship, and then another 4 cruisers. We got a bunch of crippled ships here. I'm assuming this is what dealt with that monster, or the Juggernaut fleet, I should say. And so as they're moving, it looks like they're moving from base to base, and as they're moving, they're getting repaired. I have a feeling Cerberus fleet's going to head to this YDK, finish up their repairs, and then continue to move south. What else we got here? We got Prometheus, New, Riemann. Prometheus, one of these fleets had a whole bunch of cripples as well, and New fleet. Where are you? Come on now. Why can't I? There it is. I'm blind as a bat. That's the problem. Okay, so New's on the top and Prometheus is on the bottom. So we got 4 frigates, a destroyer, and 2 cruisers in Prometheus. A cruiser, 2 W-era cruisers. We got 7 frigates, 4 destroyers, and a W-era frigate there. So not the craziest of fleets, but certainly not nothing, and more than enough to be able to deal with any potential Lyran incursions. Let me move my head to the other side so that I can start talking about the kitty cats of the Galactic West. So what can we see here? Let's just take away the ships real quick. No new base construction. Now this might have something to do with the strike that they are dealing with. Not enough kitty litter time. Not enough bathroom breaks. After all, you got to have that sand in between your paws. So something's going on here. But nonetheless, they've got some issues when it comes to what's going on with their infrastructure. We can see in the south here with the continued exploration. So we got their survey cruiser, 2 small survey freighters, another survey cruiser, and then this, it looks kind of like a tug. There's the tug. This is YTD, so transport, military transport, theater transport. That's what I'm looking for. And enemy blood. Let's look. Lyran enemy blood. Yeah, okay, enemy blood. Here we are. Whoop. Let's put that over my head. We've got 2 CAs, a CL, a DD, and an FF. So nothing too crazy, but enough to be able to deal with any kind of low-grade security concerns in that area. So they're continuing to push, which is good. You can see that because the base is here, 1, 2, 3, assuming a 3 supply, they're going to really push to this Alpha 16, Bravo 15, Charlie 15 line. And we'll see how that goes as far as their ability to continue to push forward and explore. I imagine that tug is going to move forward a couple hexes and build the next base as they continue to march forward. Nothing too much crazy. We can see that they've got, they're continuing to do their R&D on that wormhole. If I'm the Lyrans, I'm looking for, I mean, obviously there's the opportunity to be able to continue exploring, but the Lyrans have talked about and have been chatting, Chuck, about wanting to stir it up with their good friends, the Carnivons on the other side of the galaxy. So the question is, oh, let me slide myself back over there. This is the screen I was looking to go to. So the question is for you, Chuck. What is it you're going to do? Are you going to stir the pot and get the kitties to fight with the pups, or are you going to put those the pack down? Are you going to deal with those canine capers on the far side of the galaxy? What's going on? Now, granted, fighting a battle through a wormhole is a pain in the butt, and certainly that monster that's on the border with the Carnivons is going to cause all sorts of issues for them. But if I'm the Lyrans, I'm looking for an opportunity to start a fight, go to war, get my war economy going on, and stir things up. Now, that being said, if I'm the Lyrans, maybe I just want to wait it out, because I know that the Carnivons are at war status, dealing with the Remans and the IC and everything else, and maybe I'm not ready, if I'm the Lyrans, to be able to walk through that wormhole and cause all sorts of problems just yet. But I would be working towards building a fleet to be able to do that. And if I'm, you know, being neighbors with the Romulans, I might be talking to the Romulans to say, hey, you're moving south. I'm going to move through the wormhole. Let's meet in the middle and let's sort that stuff out. So there's all sorts of options here. Again, diplomacy being the knife that cuts both ways in this game. We'll see how this moves going forward. Very, very interesting. Speaking of diplomacy going bad, let's go back to the map and look at the Federation. So we talked about, let's just take away the ships for a sec. We talked about this planet right here, now hostile to the Federation. Looks like they had, once they started singing the Meow Mix song, I mean, that just all went south real fast. So now this Kzinti planet is at war with the Federation. So let's just take a look at that Constable fleet. So let's see what we got here. We have a DN, a YCS, that's a strike cruiser, a YCL, two frigates, and they have drones on them. That's the 2 in the brackets. And then they have 4 frigates. So they have 2 drone frigates, 4 frigates, a CL, a CS, and a DN. That's not nothing. On top of which, they have 4, count them, 4 planetary ground bases and a YDK. That is not nothing, and that is not something that the Federation are just going to be able to roll through. Now, the question is, the Federation, having dealt with that, are they going to assume limited war status, which I would assume that they would now that the Kzinti have attacked them. So they'll assume limited war status, and they will sort of start to deal with them in some way, shape, or form. How is that going to map in the sense of like going forward? What's going to happen there? We've got a cruiser, destroyer, and a frigate. I don't know that's going to be enough, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm very interested to see how the Federation player deals with this and how he moves this ball forward, because the Federation has been very clear in their actions that they are not willing, able, or comfortable with using force a lot to deal with these minor factions. But now, of course, they must. So what's going to happen here? How's that going to move forward? And how is the fact that Kzinti faction is now at war with them going to influence the other Kzinti faction that also has now 5 planetary ground bases, also a YDK, and they have the Patriarch fleet. I think it's Patriarch's fleet. They have even more. They got a, oh my goodness, they've got 6 frigates, 3 light cruisers, 2 strike cruisers, and a CC. So they've got almost very similar levels of ships, and they're indifferent right now. So the question is, if with the Federation at war with another Kzinti faction, will this one start to side with one or the other? Will it negatively impact the diplomacy roles that are occurring with that faction? Very interested to see and find out. And of course, let's not forget this lovely little wormhole up in the corner. What is this? So we got a tug with Second Fleet. Let's look at Federation. Federation's Second Fleet. So still has 5 and 3. So 3 cruisers, 5 frigates up here. This is the wormhole that goes to the other side of the map, which we will look at real quick. Whoop. See that little wormhole in the top corner? That is the same wormhole that comes out from the one the Federation are on top of. So where are the Federation on their wormhole tech? Are they willing to hop, skip, and jump through that? I don't know. We'll have to see. It'll be very interesting to see how that kind of evolves going forward, because the Federation, considering their position, they're not going to really start a fight with anybody, but they've got 3 different wormholes, 3 different wormholes that they could sort of start. They've got the Tango one, which goes to Klingon space. Happy if you don't want to start a fight there. That'd be nice. They've got 7th Fleet on top of that. Let's just take a quick look. I imagine probably very much the same. 5 frigates and a cruiser with a YDK on top. So that's good. Hardy, robust plug. Keep anything going through that wormhole. And then, of course, they've got this one here, the hotel, which I don't believe they've gone through, and there is nothing on the other side, in the sense we don't know where it comes out. So very interested to see where that goes and what happens there. What else we got? Ooh, so you can't see. I'm going to slide this over ever so slightly. So you see this, this right here is the Borak faction that the Tholians discovered. Now, Green Dragon. Let's look up the Borak real quick and see what Green Dragon's got. Oh, I always like calling these guys the Batman faction because their ships look like bat wings, like, like Batman. They've got a DN, a CA. So interesting to note their DN is a 6.8, CA is a 4.6, CL at 2.5. Their destroyers and frigates are just terrible. The destroyers are at a 1.5. That's what that little diamond is, 1.54. So there's 2 of those destroyers, and they have 5 frigates. Now, what's interesting about that is that, of course, even though those ships are not the greatest, they're better than the Tholian ships. So Tholian ships are horrible, and they certainly have more than enough to be able to deal with that. Now, another thing to note. They are hostile to the Tholians, so not liking them one bit. It's a medium planet, so it's a rich strike, so to speak, for the Tholians. They have 2 planetary ground bases and a YDK, so they got more than enough to hold off the Tholians in the short term, but it's a valuable get for the Tholians, so if I'm the Tholians, I want to prioritize that. It would seem also that that's an easier target than this Kzinti one here, which also, Jesus, look at that, 6 planetary ground bases. Excuse me, and home, and with home fleet, they have a DN, a CC, 3 strike cruisers, 2 CLs, and 6 frigates. They got more than enough to be able to hold off those pesky Tholians. It'll be interesting to see how that sort of evolves going forward. But like I said, that is some rich stuff. It's going to be very interesting to see how this dynamic evolves with them. They've also got this other wormhole here, this Gulf wormhole. And then, of course, they've got November and Whiskey as far as wormholes go. Interesting to note, a Hydran tug has gone through the wormhole. 2 things about that. It went through the wormhole and it's not crippled. That's important. And it's obviously playing nice with the Tholians. So whereas the Tholians in the past didn't necessarily get along that great with the Hydrans, obviously they're playing nice now. And interesting things are happening. All right, let's maximize that and scroll down to the exciting events of the Gorn. So interesting to note, a couple things here. One, notice the change in the border right here. Not here, but along with the ROMs. So we've got a little extension of the border here with the ROMs. Not much, but a little bit. And we've got, obviously, exploration activities continuing with the Gorn. Romulans continue to explore. Interesting to note the convergence here between the ROMs. Obviously, they made a concession here with the Klingons. They've made a concession here with the Gorn. I don't see anything else down here with regards to that concession, but interesting. Also, another wormhole has popped up over here. AA. It's like a battery. Alpha. So another wormhole, and it'll be very interesting to see where that wormhole shows up if and when anybody transits that wormhole. We've got that wormhole there, this wormhole here, both along the border with the Tholians, so very interesting. And then, of course, the Quebec wormhole down here, which is the one that I guess the Gorn started with. So very, very interesting. Everyone's got all these wormholes. What's going on? And so the Gorn are continuing to explore. We know their ships aren't great at this point, and that they don't have a lot of them. But they're continuing to do well as far as economically, because remember, as we go back to our EP, we'll just move that over here, the Gorn are at 42 EP. Despite their sort of size, in the sense that they're not the biggest as far as total volume of space explored, but their economy is bigger than the Romulans. It is bigger than the Lyrans. It is bigger than the Federation, bigger than the Hydrans at this point. And they are right up against the ISC. So they're not by any means suffering based on their progression. They're doing very well. The only sort of criticism, and this is sort of a result of their level of tech. Their ships just aren't very good, so they don't have a lot. Understandably, they haven't built a lot, but they just don't have a lot of offensive firepower because a combination of their ships and, of course, not building a whole bunch. And they haven't been at war or anything, so that's good for them. Let's roll into the ROMs. So a couple of interesting things. One, like I said, this border arrangement up here and the continuing exploration of ships Let's just take away the ships real quick. You can see that they finished this base here, and they're continuing to push. This is a tug for the Romulans, so they're going to probably build a base there, and they continue to explore as they go up and up and up, and continuing to push that effort to get to the middle. We can also see down here that we've got a space monster, which was that mention of a creature that has shown up in Romulan space, and right over a wormhole, which is always fun. So it'll be interesting to see how the 19th Legion, which I am going to Romulan Legions 19. 19th Legion. Oh, 2019. I'm assuming that's 19th. So 19th Legion is just a frigate, which is the snipe, the WSN, a WR frigate and a small exploration frigate, or a freighter, I should say. So those are going to be juicy targets that Dragon's going to chomp them up, no big deal. Romulans are going to have to mount some kind of military offensive to go deal with them, and away they go. They've got the 14th Legion continuing to explore. They got the 2nd Legion. What's the 2nd Legion these days? Romulan Legion 2nd. So they got 3 warbirds and a kingbird. So the kingbird's their command cruiser, so equivalent to like the D4C by example. And they've got that sort of in place. They've got this Y era, this Yankee wormhole down here, and then of course you've got a lot of these Orion bases they've recently discovered, which I'm sure are going to meet a timely demise, as the Romulans are not one to tolerate typically. They're not ones to tolerate. Oh, interesting. They are not ones to tolerate the Orions. Interesting to note here. Okay, so this is a WFB, which is one of their tugs, but this is their supply node. 1, 2, 3, 4. In Whiskey 56, there is a ship. So I'm going to guess that the Romulans are now at the point where they have 4. Supply 4. That's not unreasonable. Certainly to be expected, and absolutely sort of like pseudo confirmed by the fact that up here, this is their base. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 17th Legion is at the edge of that 14 or that 4 hex range. So I'm going to guess that the Romulans have a supply 4, which is good, and away they go. Speaking of my favorite faction, I don't know why. Let's slide on over to the Klingons. What's going on with the Klingons, everybody? Well, as you can see here, it's hard. It's easy to lose track of these little raider fleets because they'll just pop in and you'll never know what's going on. But minor fleets, Juggernaut fleet, raiders. So we can see, let's expand that. Oh, yes. Oh, so exciting. Let's put him over here in the dark. I'll put it over my head. Okay, so we can see they've got a CA, a CL, 2 DDs, and 3 FFs. So this is the standard configuration of what we've seen recently when it comes to the Juggernaut factions. So it's certainly nothing. It's not nothing. It is a pain in the butt because those 12 maulers can inflict a lot of damage. That's 20, 32, oh my God, 32, 47 total attack factors that thing's got, and they just are so hard to deal with. The destroyers, the frigates, the crew. Oh my God, it's just a pain in the butt. So anyways, that's what's going on there. So I am going to have to mount a defense against those sneaky buggers. And good though, in that I've got a fair number of ships and assets in the area. I'll most likely have to go to limited war to be able to deal with it, because I mean, that's a significant fleet. And then of course just get ships in the area to be able to facilitate that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I mean, I can strat move ships to this base here, and then sort of they're within striking distance of the raiders. We'll just have to see how that evolves going forward. But beyond the raiders, as you can see, the exploration is continuing. This fog of war bubble in here is essentially gone. We've got a couple of cruisers continuing to try and, just knock it out for the rest of the time that it's there. Get rid of all those my brain will kick in any minute here. Fog of War hexes, thank you. And as we go up to the top here, you can see we're pushing the exploration into the north. So we've got Red Fleet still here, Battle Group Blood, which is again just ships, crippled ships that I'm repairing. Still a remnant of the Romulan War. Can you believe it? I still have crippled ships from that fight. Unbelievable. Anywho, so we've got a bunch of cruisers up here. You can see there's this tug ready to build another base. Exploration as we're going here. Again, here we've discovered a resource right here and continuing to push and explore all these little areas and move that up. What else we got? Nothing too much. We got to build a base over here. We're going to continue to sort of like try and explore this way, especially since we just lost an exploration freighter. I'll build exploration freighters and have them go out this way. Go out this way and see if I can, explore in this general direction. That's basically it. Continue to explore and push out to the borders of my quote unquote backyard. And what else we got? That's pretty much it. That looks like that is the round table for the map. So before I sort of ask for your 2 cents on what's going on with the map, and again touch back in with the folks in the chat, quick talk about the upcoming new campaign. So in case you didn't catch it, of course, it's going to be called Into the Void, which is the name of the campaign. The campaign starts on July 1st. At the end of this weekend, we'll basically tally those who have filled out the form, and and assess where we're at for total number of players. I'm pretty sure, almost 100% sure, that we're already at 10 players. I think we might get a few more in there because the map that we're using is going to be bigger. So a couple key things. One, the Hydron player Jim will be our GM for that game. Two, the game will be different than this one. This one that you've seen, the distribution of players is very much like pies. Like the pie distribution, distance from the center and on different sort of bearings and angles. So less pizza pie, more scatter across the board. It's a much bigger map than we've used in the past, and there's going to be a lot more possibility in the sense that the distribution is going to be a distribution that allows for not the pizza pie configuration. So with the pizza pie configuration, you certainly have like a neighbor on your right, a neighbor on your left kind of thing. Whereas with the scattered distribution, more like chocolate chips in a chocolate chip cookie, interesting metaphor. It's going to be, you could have neighbors on top, below, left, and right. You could have them all over the place. So it creates a more dynamic map. You never know where your next neighbor is coming from or threat. And it can create a lot more dynamic interface. There's going to be a couple of little changes when it comes to rules, but we'll go over that with those players at the time. And certainly if we're doing any videos talking about that campaign, we'll discuss that. And of course, there's going to be, the vassal module is going to look different. There's going to be more graphical components that are going to be introduced into the vassal module, just in the sense that we've had one of our community members, Kevin, phenomenal, who's done a lot of work in sort of building out the module a little bit better to provide us some other options and more fun in that respect. So kudos to Kevin for the work that he's done, and we're going to be looking forward to bringing out those different factions. We'll do a different video to be able to talk to some of those players and talk about some of their factions, what they're playing, and sort of the impetus, the motivation, what's the story behind your faction and things like that. Because one of the things about these games that is sort of interesting is that after the first or second game, you get kind of tired of playing the same old Federation or Klingons or whatever the case is. For example, in this game, the Klingon faction is not the Klingons as you would typically know them. It is a faction inspired by, motivated by, the Alpha Legion in the pre-Horus Heresy Warhammer 40k universe. I have characters, the Alphas, that are these, genetically modified super soldier brothers who are acting on behalf and leading the Klingon Empire. Their personas and the sort of the archetypes of their character are motivated and inspired again by by Alpha and Omicron from Warhammer 40K and the Alpha Legion specifically, and that's kind of like how those were the seeds of the story that got me going forward. We have the Hydran Theocracy, by example, the Hydran faction, that is completely outside of the normal monarchy that is, although maybe not too far off, but it's outside the normal monarchy and structure for the Hydrans in the traditional Starfleet universe. So to be clear, you're playing Starfleet universe factions in the sense of the ships and the resources and the options you have from a military-esque gameplay. The difference is the role-playing elements are totally your own. How are you coming up with the motivations, the reasons, why are you doing what you're doing? It's all based on you and the role play that you want to bring forward. How is that going to inspire your story, drive the actions of you and your characters? How are you going to interact with other players? Are you going to, how is that role play going to impact and affect those interactions? So those are the kinds of things that we'll talk about as we get further towards the start date of the game, and we'll look for opportunities to create videos around that new campaign and drive that ball forward. But one way or the other, it's going to be exciting to see how this entire thing evolves when it comes to the game. All right, let me just check in with the chat. I see Measurement is finally here. Whoa. All right, so let's, where did we, okay, so Eugene, how to resource and supply. Chuck, Dan, can you look at my sheet? After I sent it to you, I can only see the front page. Incidentally, for those of you who, we use Google Sheets or Excel in my case, but we use spreadsheets basically to be able to manage movement and like your balance sheet and resources and the MSIT or the Master Ship Implementation Table or Implementation or Introduction Table. Either way, it's the shopping list that we use to be able to look at all the ships you can build and when you can build them and all that kind of stuff. And so all of that is done through a spreadsheet. So if you are familiar with Google Sheets, fantastic. If you're not, you will become if you're a player. I use Excel, but Google Sheets and Excel are like totally interchangeable. The only difference is with Google Sheets, the advantages of Google Sheets is that they are all sort of living documents, meaning that everyone can, like the GM and you can log into your sheet and you can see changes in real time. So it's a great collaboration tool in that way, and you can see things happening pretty quickly. It's good that way. And then of course you've got Vassal, which is showing you the map, which you've seen today and in every live stream. And then of course we use Discord to be able to facilitate the social aspect of the game. We have questions about rules and various things that will appear there. And of course, we have our diplomacy channels where players can jump in and have chit chats with folks and sort things out instead of doing it via email. They can do it that way if they want to as well. So all sorts of fun stuff that you can do there. All right, back to the chat. Don't forget Columbia, Dell says, which we checked out. The resource wrongly marked as Klingon. We already talked about that. It is Klingon. There we go. Daniel, yes. In a partial grid, 1 EP supports 5 ships. Oh, yeah, we talked about this. Chuck, when I pounce, you will see. A good predator does not let his prey know when he is ready to strike. Chuck, I like it. I love the connivingness of it. I'm looking forward to seeing the triggering of the trap, the pouncing on the prey, whatever the case may be. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be very exciting. Measurement is here. Oh, sorry. So Kevin was saying explore up and down then? Yes. So whereas in this game, you very much know where the border is. So this is an interesting thing. Let me ask you all of you as viewers, what you think. In this game, and you saw this from the very first episodes where you were seeing the Klingons slowly evolve before they bumped into their neighbors, and some of the other factions as well. We saw the borders of the map from day one. We knew where we were in the universe, kind of thing. We knew that the the edge of the universe was here and the center of the universe was there and all that kind of stuff. And that makes sense from the perspective of, if you got a telescope, you can look into the sky and you can see where you are in the world, kind of thing, right? You know that this is the galaxy, this is where you are in the galaxy, and so on and so forth. In the new game, there is a question mark about whether we are going to do it, whether your position on the map is going to be ambiguous, meaning you don't know whether you're top left, middle, wherever you are. And the reason why that's important is two things. I guess three things. One, it creates ambiguity and uncertainty for the player in the sense that they have to be prepared for wherever they might be. If you know you're in the top corner of the map, then you can concentrate moving. Let's say you're in the top left, you can concentrate moving down right. Or if you're in the northeast, you can concentrate moving southwest. But if you don't know where you are, then you just got to expand until you bump into something and then you know where you are. So that creates an interesting play experience for the player. And that's kind of fundamentally the positive of it is that it creates an interesting and different experience for the player. So that's one thing. The problem, one challenge with it is that it creates a lot of work for the GM because the GM has to populate you on a map, but then has to take you and put you in a different bespoke little map that has no borders or whatever and just kind of randomly puts you in there. So that can be challenging for the GM and create a little bit of confusion for the player when they find out where they are and they position themselves on the map. So, and what's going to happen when you bump into other players? We don't know the answer to the question of that just yet. So the question is, so those are two concerns. And then the third is what happens when you start bumping into multiple factions? So let's say you're in the middle of the map, you bump into 3 neighbors. So those 3 neighbors have you and you all can see each other, but how are you going to be positioned in and on the map? Again, workload for the GM, potential confusion for the players when they get ported onto the actual master map. So the question is, if we can reasonably expect that advanced technologies, advanced civilizations that can go to space have the ability to be able to map where they are in the galaxy, is it reasonable to expect that they would know where they are on the map? Not necessarily who their neighbors are, but they know where they are on the map. If that's the case, then what would be the usefulness of creating that sort of ambiguous spot? Again, the sort of ambiguous and excitingness of the player sort of exploring that environment, that could be fun, but it's a lot of work for the GM. So is it, from a risk return on investment perspective, is it worthwhile for you as players to have an experience like that? Or would it just be easier to start off, you know where you are on the map and just kind of go from there? Because at least in that way, you don't have to constantly be thinking about the sort of like the identifier of what hex you're in. By example, I can tell you right off the top that Lima Lima 47 is where the Klingon homeworld is. That's because that's my map. I've been in that hex since day one and I know where everything is. The new map, because of the size of it, it's going to have a 4-digit number. So 2 digits with or I guess 3 digits with a potential 3 digits. So 6. But it's not going to be alphanumeric with the letters and the numbers. It's going to be numbers to make it easier. And you'll see that when you see the map. But long story short, what works best for you? Would you prefer to have fog of war everywhere, not knowing where you are? Or would you rather know where you are on the map and then just explore those fog of war hexes, knowing that you're in the bottom, the center, the top, the middle, wherever, and you just kind of go from there? You let me know in the comments, which I will just jump into once again. Welcome, Meiji. Kevin, Jim will have his work cut out for him. That is so true. Jim is taking on a lot, so it's going to be fun. Can't wait for the Romulans to come through that wormhole, Paul says with a big smile. The map is a arbitrary border. The actual globular galaxy may extend well beyond the map border. Interesting. So what's interesting about that idea is that you could theoretically add more to the map. I mean, you can't necessarily do it in the game with Vassal once you've populated a map, but theoretically you could move further out. So anyway, just just ideas to think about. Lord Lawless, logically reasonable, but even if it wasn't, game pragmatism, i.e. extra work to little benefit. I'd argue any in-game explanation, techno mumbo jumbo, would justify the easier setup. Fair. I agree. I mean, but we'll see how it goes. Like I say, the workload is on the game master, so the game master can decide how they would like to do that. 250 by 250 hex map, Kevin says. By context, you can see if you've seen this map. We have a 57 by, what is it? Is it what's I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. We've got 3 letters, so hold on. Trying to remember. I can't remember off the top of my head how many letters are in the alphabet. I want to say it's 24. I'm probably wrong. 26. So 26 letters in the alphabet. So 26 times 2 is 52 plus an extra 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 57 by 57 map is what we're playing on right now. And what is being proposed, or what's going to be in this new game, is a 250 by 250. That's huge by comparison. So let's call it 50 by 50. It's more than that. But let's say 50 by 50 is what we're currently playing in. That's going to be 250 by 250. It's going to be so much bigger. And one of the biggest things about that is that more players, more space, and we'll see if it's too big. I mean, we don't know if it's too big because we've never played on a map that big before, but it's an experiment. It's fun. And that's part of the fun that we're having on this channel in this game is to explore new things, try new iterations, new rules, new features when it comes to Vassal and various other things. Even this live stream is an experiment to see whether you enjoy following along in the events of what's going on in this game and whether that's something that you would like, enjoy, and so on. So Hex is AAA 250 or however that is. Yeah. So no, it's going to be like new map is 120 by 100. Jim says, oh, okay. So the maximum could be 250 by 250, but this is going to be 120 by 100. Jim being the game master. So that makes more sense. Much better. Way bigger than Jim intends. Okay. Yeah. So, for example, well, we'll get to that when we cross that bridge. Time will tell. Okay, everybody. So that was the turn today. What did you think about the turn? What do you think about that buffer zone that's occurred on the top of Hydron space? Do you think the Klingons and the Romulans are actually going to be able to do anything with it, or is it just too far away and they're not going to be able to actually tangibly create a speed bump or a barrier or anything that the ISC and or the Remans are going to be able to stop? I'm curious to see what's going to happen there because yeah, it's going to be interesting. I know that there was a specific sort of intention with creating that buffer zone, and understandably, it didn't work out exactly the way the originator intended. However, it has created some very interesting dynamics, which I think will be very sort of interesting to play out. It'll be fun to see. And there's still more to come. I have a little birdie whisper in my ear that there's other stuff happening in the background. So more shenanigans to come your way. Stay tuned. And of course, what are you thinking about the Jugs in the face of the Klingons? The Lyrans suffering their strike. The Tholians getting smacked by a minor faction. And of course, the Federation dealing with a kitty revolt. What kind of things are you interested in tracking, following, and seeing evolve in this game? Are you is there a particular faction that you particularly like? I mean, obviously the players like what they play, but you tell me in the comments below in the chat, who is your favorite faction? Who are you looking or rooting for to win? Do you see any sort of like tragic pitfalls that are waiting to be or bombs that are waiting to blow up, so to speak? What do you think is coming down the pipe? I'd be very interested to see and read those comments as we go forward. So last check-in with the chat here. As long as it keeps the ISC at war, it will be doing as intended, Jim says. Dell's question mark. There's a buffer zone? Paul laughing his face off. Oh, there's a comment from Eugene there, I think. When Columbus left, he had no idea where he was going or what he would find. But he knew the world was round. And they had an idea of how big it was. So, you know, that's what I was making reference to. Wouldn't just keeping the ISC at war hurt them? Hurt the ISC? Yes, it would. Incidentally, like keeping everybody in war to get them to war exhaustion gets them further towards war exhaustion, which is, I think, is the goal. Lord Lawless, +1 for more shenanigans. Woohoo! Chuck, if it goes to 20, once you pass 20 war turns, you start suffering economic disadvantages, and when you get to 30, things get real. Remans, no bias here. I would like to hear more lore regarding Lyran kitty litter. Chuck, I throw that to you. Eugene, doesn't every faction believe that they are the center of the universe? Well, I mean, if you're in Canada, it's Quebec, and if you're in the States, it's Texas, and I don't know what the equivalent would be in Australia or the UK, but I'm sure there's some faction, some community, somewhere where you live that believes that they are the center of the universe. And with that, I will bid you all adieu. Thank you so much for joining us today on this live stream. Looking forward to next week. And of course, we'll be having more videos come out. I'm not sure about this week, but we'll have more videos coming with regards to the new campaign, the announcement of the players, the factions, and so on, and how that's going forward. If you haven't already signed up for the new game and you want to play, get in there now. Check out that video, which is on the playlist for Into the Void on the channel. It's one of the most recent videos. It should be easy to find. Go there, sign up, fill it out, and get your name on the list. First come, first serve, with, again, preference for all those supporters who are Coffee or Patreon supporters. If you're not already, check out that link right down there. Links are also in the sign-up sheet if you would like to become a Coffee and or Patreon supporter. Very much appreciate it. So thank you very much. Stay subscribed and with your alerts to see as more videos trickle and make their way to the channel. I will see you otherwise next week. Bye for now.